Hello, everyone, and welcome to Immigration Talk Show. I'm Nipasa, and I'm going to be your host for this session that's lined up. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Before we head on with today's discussion, I have this important disclaimer. And that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. That said, friends, we are streaming live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and also on Instagram. So wherever you're watching us, don't forget to follow us, connect with us, and stay in touch with us. Also, you can participate in this discussion that's lined up by commenting wherever you're watching. And apart from commenting, you can also join us on call. And the number for calling in is 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. So join us, friends. And yes, today's discussion is going to be on the topic that you can already see on the screen: how to file your H1B cap case. And it's going to be very interesting, especially because it's already the H1B season here. And yes, registrations just closed on the 24th of March at noon Eastern Time. So the clock is ticking, and we'll just have to wait and watch to see if we are selected for sure. So, yes, the clock is ticking, and we just have to know how to file everything right. So, to guide us in this process, we have none other than our very amazing and respected immigration attorney, Prashanthi Reddy. She's a really well known, expert in her immigration process and has been doing this for almost 3 decades now. So, hi, Prashanthi. Welcome back to Immigration Talk Show. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, Nipasa. It's great to be back, and we're here on a Friday instead of a Wednesday. So happy to be here.
Me too, me too. So, how did it go for you? I mean, registrations closed on Monday this week, and I just wonder how busy was it
Yes.
for
So I don't
you
know.
people?
So the first news I want to give out is that the registration lottery results are out today. They started coming out this morning. We've already gotten a few picks. So that's the biggest news, that the lottery results are slowly trickling in. All the results are not yet out. I think they'll scatter them over the next few days. So you should expect to see more results over Monday, Tuesday next week, and as well as some more results today. So we did receive a few. So anybody out there who has filed for a registration, please make sure that you reach out to your employer. All those employers out there, even if you're using an attorney, make sure that you monitor your system carefully. Look out for emails from the USCIS, my USCIS portal, which says that some changes have been made to your account. Even if you haven't received email, just go into your account and check for selected cases. The other note of warning that I want to give you is, last time, even though some of the cases, they didn't say selected, it said submitted, but when you actually clicked on the case, there was a registration pick notice there. So I want to make sure that, even if it doesn't say selected, but it says submitted, you still go into your registration and click on it and check if there is a registration selection notice there. You need to check for the next few days until the USCIS says that they have stopped, um, stop the lottery. That is, you should check at least until April 1st, to see if your registrations have been picked. And as I said, go through all your registrations, not just the ones that show selected. And also look out for the email, as I said. So good news, registration has been picked. Registration results are coming out slowly. We should expect more results to come out. Today is the 28th. So all the results should come out by April 1st. So you can expect results on the 31st and today, and maybe over the weekend as well. And by Tuesday, all the results should be out. That's the first. You have, of course, 90 days to file your selected cap case after that. So, we'll be talking more about the registration results, the lottery results, what to expect. But to answer your question, Nipasa, with reference to what we saw this year with reference to registrations, I think a lot of people are in consensus with me, and I've done some surveys, asked other attorneys, asked other companies, and they've all said that they have filed less registrations when compared to last year. So we can expect that the pick rate will be higher. I'm expecting the pick rate, the number of registrations to be around the 200 to 300,000 range. Maybe I'm wrong, but let's wait and see. And I'm also expecting that the pick rate will be around 40 to 50%. Again, let's wait and see. Last year, the pick rate was about 25 to 30%. So again, we're waiting to see how many registrations are picked. And of course, this is not the final. If after the registrations are picked and after June 30th, the maximum time to file the H1s, after that period is over, if not enough people have filed their selected registration H1s, then it's possible that USCIS will select another round of cases through the lottery. That means release more results. Last year we had 2 lottery selections, so we can wait and see, and that might increase also the percentage of cases picked. So we have to wait until all the cases have been filed, the deadline to file cases, and to wait and see whether there'll be another lottery, and then finally there'll be announcement as to how many cases were picked, how many cases were selected, how many registrations were filed, etc., etc.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting these next few days, and all the best to friends out there who participated. Let's wait till Monday, right, Prashanthi? I think all the results will be out at least by Tuesday morning. So let's hope for the
Yes.
best, keep our fingers crossed, and all the best, really. That's all I can say. So, yes, you're tuned in the right space if you are looking how to file your H1B cap case. Okay, so you were saying 90 days. So, is it 90 working days or like all days included, including weekends?
90 calendar days.
Calendar days. Okay. Thank you, Prashanti. So I think I'm very much ready for our questions, but I'll quickly say hello to Arjun. Thank you, Arjun, for joining us on YouTube. Just stay with us because we will be addressing all of your questions a little later in the show. But to start off, Prashanti, if I may ask you to explain, how USCIS determines whether an H1B petition is subject to the annual cap and what exemptions are available.
Well, in order to know whether you're subject to the cap or not, it's very simple. If you have never filed for a H1, you're certainly subject to the cap then, because this is for first time filings. Or if you have filed for a H1 and you worked on a H1, but you've left the country for a period of 1 year and then applied for a fresh 6 year term on your H1, in those circumstances, also you're subject to the cap if you're seeking a fresh 6 years term. So in those two circumstances, you're subject to the cap. Also, it's possible that you could be not subject to the cap if you're working for a cap exempt organization. A cap exempt organization is a non-profit governmental research organization or a non-profit research organization or an organization, a higher secondary educational organization, so a university, college, etc. Or it could be an organization that's related to or affiliated to a higher secondary institution. So a teaching hospital would be one example where the hospital is actually affiliated to a medical school maybe or a nursing school, etc. So those people are um, cap exempt, and the rest are cap subject.
Okay. Thank you, Prashanti, for clearing that out. And I hope that folks out there, you are tuned in. You can always join us on call as well. The number is displayed on the screen. And to move on with our discussion for today, Prashanti, what are the chances of an applicant really getting selected in the H1B lottery? And if there is any strategy now to improve those chances?
So, I mean, one way of improving your chances is, of course, if you have a master's degree from a US university, which is not for profit or a public university. Um, that's obviously one way of improving your chances, because then for a master's degree holders who have an advanced degree in the US and subject to the conditions I just mentioned, they have an additional 20,000 um, cap numbers. So the total number of H1Bs allowed in a year is 85,000. 65,000 is the normal lottery, and 20,000 is the master's cap. So if you have a master's degree and you're applying under the master's cap, you also get two entrances into the lottery. One is under the master's cap, and then if you don't get selected, you also get put into the regular cap. So you get two chances. So you definitely have a higher chance of being picked. So that's one way of increasing your chances. And of course, uh, most importantly, you have to file your lottery properly. You have to make sure that you enter all the information. You have to make sure that you have uh, put in an unexpired passport into the lottery system, put in the correct passport number because they're selecting based on the passport number. Make sure you inform your bank with reference to the fees that have to be paid so that the bank doesn't stop the transaction, because the lottery system, the lottery registration is online, and you have to put in either your ACH, bank ACH number, or your credit card number. So you have to contact either organization to make sure that those charges go through. Because if you don't, then you don't even get selected into the lottery. Your registration gets denied. So make sure that the money has gone through. And of course, don't file duplicates, because if you file by mistake more than one registration for each beneficiary, each of your employees, then it automatically does not get put into the lottery. So these are some of the ways that you improve your chances of getting picked. I mean, one is by filing a proper registration, and the other is maybe by being a master's degree holder and applying under the master's cap quota.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much, Prashanthi. And here goes again to all you folks out there, all the very best to those who have taken part in this lottery and who are waiting for the results as well. So, my next question, Prashanthi, if you could tell us what are the key documents that employers must submit to properly file an H1B cap subject petition?
uh, what are the documents that an employer must submit to properly file cap subject petition? Well, firstly, um, you have to submit your selection notice, because without that, you cannot file H1B cap subject petition. You should have been selected in the lottery. You can only file after April 1. So the most important document is, of course, the registration selection notice. And of course, then you have to follow instructions in the notice and send it to the right office that has been mentioned in the notice. The notice also mentions your deadline to file it. So that's a really important document. In addition to that, you'd have to submit documentation to show that you qualify for a H1, and that is the same for any H1, whether it be cap subject or cap exempt, or you're filing an extension or transfer, etc. And that documentation is, proof to you have to have an LCA approved, right? That is another very, very important document. So as soon as your selection happens, if it happens, then you have to, the first step is to file a labor condition application with the Department of Labor and then that takes about 5 to 7 business days. So make sure that you file it on time to meet your deadlines. Once that is approved, then you submit your application along with your educational credentials to show that you qualify for the job, a description of the job in your petitioner letter to show that your job qualifies as a specialty occupation. And then if the person is in the US, then any proof of status to show that the person actually qualifies for a change of status. If the person is outside the country, then you simply have to submit their passport copy. That's another document that is compulsory. And the passport has to be unexpired. So those are some of the documents that you require, that you need. And of course, you have to have an offer letter from your employer. And your employer has to show proof that they have bona fide specialty occupation work for you. So if you're getting hired as a software engineer, then they have to show that they have enough software engineer related work. So the way they show that is to either show the nature of their business, the volume of the business, an explanation of documentary evidence to show volume of the business, and an explanation as to why they need you. If they are a consulting company, then they need to show PO and contracts from the end client showing that the position of a software engineer are required.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for taking that up. And I would say, friends, do participate. You can comment and you can also join us on call. If you have any questions, you can ask it directly to Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, who is here right now with us. And the number is 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. That said, let's take up Arjun's comments. Hi, Arjun. Once again, thank you. And he's asking, I've been offered a job in a specialized field, but the employer is unsure whether my position qualifies for the H1B. What factors should they consider to determine if my role meets the required criteria?
As I was mentioning, you have to show that that it's a specialty occupation, that the job requires a bachelor's degree in a specific field. Employers unsure. I mean, if they're well, they have to look at their past practices to see for similar job or for the same job whether they generally require a bachelor's degree in a specific field. They can also look at the Occupational Outlook Handbook (OOH). The OOH will show you most jobs. It will show whether a bachelor's degree in a specific field is required for those kind of positions. Um, it could be that the position is not in the OH if it's a position that's normally not used in the industry. In that case, you can always go to Indeed or Dice or any other job search portals and see whether a bachelor's degree in a specific field is usually required for such a job. The other alternative is if even if it's usually not required, you can give an explanation as to why the employer requires a bachelor's degree in a specific field for your job specifically. So in that case, you have to show the complexity of the job. You have to break it down and show why each element of the job requires, say, a bachelor's degree in computer science, and why the job cannot be performed without a computer science degree. So these are some ways of showing that your job is a specialty occupation.
Okay, there you go, Arjun. I hope you've gotten your answer. And if you have any more questions, keep commenting. So, Prashanti, also my next question to you would be, if you can clarify the requirements of the labor condition application, the LCA, and how it affects the H1B petition process.
Um, yeah, and that's the question that one of the persons, haha, also has that exactly same question. So that's good. So we get two birds in one shot. Um, the LCA requirements, um, the LCA basically is, first of all, is a labor condition application. The LCA is filed by get an approval of this LCA before you actually file H1B petition. The LCA shows you the offered wage. You have to put in the offered wage, the prevailing wage. You have to look up the prevailing wage survey to see what the prevailing wage is. And you or look it up in the Department of Labor website in flcadata.com. So the LCA has the job title, it has the work location, it has the prevailing wage for that work location. It also has your offered wage, which has to be equal or more than the prevailing wage, and it also has some attestations with reference to if an employer is H1B dependent employer, then they have to make some additional attestations. So that's what an LCA is, and all the information in the LCA has to be accurate, because once a H1B petition is filed, if the LCA is not accurate and you get an RFE, there's no way that you can then prepare and submit a new approved LCA, because the LCA has to be approved before the filing of the H1B petition. So that in a nutshell is what an LCA is. It's a labor condition application. It is you are sending it out to the DOL and getting approval from the DOL with reference to the job, the prevailing wage, and the work location.
All right, Prashanthi, thank you. And yes, related to just like you said, Madhavi Saha's question. Thank you, Madhavi, for joining us on YouTube. But she's also asking about the common mistakes to avoid when filing the H1B cap case, and how can I ensure that her labor condition application is accurate and complete to avoid delays or denials.
Well, the common mistakes while filing a cap petition is, first of all, make sure that you file it in time. Don't wait until the last moment to file it, because even if you do make a mistake and the case comes back, then at least you can resend it. If you send it in the last week or a month before, USCIS will take a month to send it back, and by then the cap will be over, and then they won't accept your application. So I think the most important mistake most people do is sending out their application in the last moment. Avoid that. Then you'll be forgiven. Even if you make some mistake, you can always resend your case. But the common mistakes that people usually make are, forgetting to sign the petition, then the case comes back. Putting in the wrong USCIS fee. The USCIS fee determination is complex, so make sure that you're looking at this carefully to see what the fee is for your particular case. The address is a no-brainer. It's in your selection notice. So make sure you follow that. Don't go to the USCIS website and see what the address is there should be from there. That's for transfers and extensions and amendments, not for cap cases. Cap cases, you have to follow the selection notice to see where the case goes out. So that's another very, very important mistake to avoid. Also, send out the right documents so that you don't get an RFE. Send out all the documents that I mentioned earlier. Your proof of viable employment, your educational credentials, petitioner letter showing that it's a specialty occupation, your passport copy, unexpired passport, and proof of status if you're in the US. So these are some of the common mistakes made, sending it to the wrong address, not putting in the proper documentation, not doing proper research on your case to see whether it's a specialty occupation or not, or how to, not putting proper job description, putting a very short or incorrect job description, which doesn't match with really the job title. Say you have the job title of a software engineer, you put in a description of a programmer, then you're going to get not only an RFE but ultimately a denial, because you cannot then up and change the job description when you get an RFE, because they won't believe it. They'll ask why you're suddenly changing the job description. So these are things, common mistakes people made, and important to avoid them because you may not be able to change them later on. So yeah, I mean, these are some of the common mistakes, and it's important to go through your application properly. Maybe use an attorney if you're not familiar with, all the potential problems, and there are many in H1B. Go through an attorney to make sure that you can avoid all these potential problems and mistakes.
Absolutely. And Madhavi, you can also contact Attorney Prashanthi Reddy for the same. If in case, you want more help with your case or anything for your one-on-one consultation, you can contact Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, and, you can also email her. And, Control, if you can please display the contact details for Attorney Prashanthi Reddy so that Madhavi can note them down. So the contact number is 212-354-1010, and Attorney Prashanthi's email is prashanthi@reddyesq.com, and go visit www.reddyesq.com to get to know more about Attorney Prashanthi Reddy and the law offices of Prashanthi Reddy. Thank you, Madhavi. And we have Gotham as well. Gotham, please stay with us. We are going to address your question very, very soon. But for now, Prashanti, if you can tell us also about what types of employers or institutions are exempt from the H1B cap, and how can an applicant qualify under this exemption?
As I was mentioning, exempt employers are nonprofit research and nonprofit government organizations, and universities or colleges, institutions of higher education. There are organizations that are affiliated with institutions of higher education, such as teaching hospitals.
Mhm.
Um, they are employers who are not subject to the cap. Also, if you're working, say, for a consulting company, but the end client qualifies as a cap exempt organization, then also you will be able to file cap exempt petition. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're filing a H1B concurrent, and if you're already cap exempt, then you can file a concurrent H1B which is cap subject, even though you have not been counted towards the cap. Very important. This is also, a lot of people don't know this. So if you're already cap exempt, you have a H1B approval, you would like to go with another jobs, meaning you want to have two jobs at the same. Your second job will automatically be cap exempt as long as it is concurrent and you are working two jobs, and the previous job, the first job that you're working on is cap exempt. So important to note that.
Thank you, Prashanti, for telling us about that, and I hope that folks out there are taking notes. So now let's go on to take this next question, Prashanti. And you know, if a beneficiary has entered a US master's degree or higher, how does the advanced degree exemption work in the lottery process?
Um, right. So if the beneficiary has earned a US master's degree or higher, how does it? So as I was saying that I think I talked about this, that there's a separate cap for master's degree holders who have completed a master's degree in a public for profit university. So please note that there are all these restrictions. It's not just any US degree. So if you do have such a degree, then you are subject to the US master's cap. So you will then be put into the 20,000 lottery because there's a separate cap for US master's degree holders, which is 20,000. Selected in that, you will be put into the regular lottery. Noticed always that people who have a master's degree who qualify for the master's cap exemptive definitely have a higher rate of registration picks when compared to people who don't have who are not qualified for master's cap. So it
Okay.
improves your chances of getting picked for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Prashanti. Thank you for taking that up. And now, if you can also tell us if an employer's H1B petition is rejected due to an error, can they refile it within the same cap year? And what are the limitations?
I couldn't hear you because there was an echo. Can you repeat?
Okay, I'm so sorry. I hope I'm audible now. I was
Hello?
just asking if an employer's H1B
Yes.
petition is rejected due to an error, can they refile it within the same cap year? And what are the limitations?
Right. So as I was mentioning earlier, one of the do's and don'ts, file your petition as early as possible. This is so that if there is an error in filing and the case comes back from the mailing room, or if the case just gets denied because you file a wrong LCA or you put in some wrong information, you can always refile as long as you're able to correct that information so that you don't get a denial again. You can always refile, but it has to be before the deadline, because as you know, there's a 90 days filing period for all H1B cap subject petitions after getting selected. So say you file in April, the case gets denied in May or even the beginning of June, as long as you refile your petition before June 30th, which is in most instances when the deadline is for all cases picked in the first lottery. Yes, you'll definitely be able to refile. But if the denial comes after June 30th, that is after the 90 days period is over, then if you refile, there are very, very low chances of them approving the case because you're filing after the deadline period.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for taking that up. And we have Ankit, who's back again with another question. So we'll quickly address his question. If my H1B petition is denied after being selected in the lottery, what are my options for addressing the denial?
Um, I mean, if it's denied in the lottery process, right now there's nothing you can do. But while the lottery is still open, you can definitely refile. But if you missed
Okay.
your opportunity and the denial happens after the lottery closed, there's not much you can do because the lottery is closed.
Okay. Thank you, Prashanthi, for
And
taking
you,
that
he
up. And
actually, I think
yes,
the person is asking if the H1B petition is denied after selected in the lottery, what are my options? So I think they're
right.
not talking. He's not talking about the selection registration process denial, but that question just now. As long as the denial happens before the 90 days period is over, then you can definitely refile. If it happens after the 90 days period, then you cannot refile. Then you have to file for registration next lottery because you're now you still continue to be cap subject because you've not
Mhm.
you don't have a H1B petition approved. You're only cap exempt if you have a H1B petition approved. And since you don't because it got denied, you have to again file in the next cap and then again try your luck in getting selected.
Okay. Well, thank you, Prashanthi, for taking this up. And Ankit, I hope that you've got your answer now. Now, our next question, let's take it up from Gotham. This is also on YouTube. Hi, Gotham. Thank you so much for joining us today. And he's asking, can you walk me through the step by step process of filing an H1B petition, including how to submit the petition, pay the required fees, and respond to any potential RFE or other inquiries from USCIS? Wow, that's quite a handful. And it would be one show, I think. Right, Prashanti? But yes, as briefly as you can, maybe.
More than a show, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah,
And Gautam wants to get all the information about a H1B in this show.
in the show.
Gautam,
Yeah.
number one, that's not possible. You definitely have to contact an attorney if you want to know how to file a H1B petition. Use an attorney, in fact, to file one, rather than experimenting and learning this, on the go. H1B can be very complex process, and you may not even realize it that there's so many issues involved in a H1B petition. Even for people who know how to fill out the form, they often don't know what the issues are and why they're answering a certain question, yes or no, and what are the consequences of answering it a certain way. They don't know that. They just blindly fill out the H1B petition, the I-129 form. So, as I said, you have to first file an LCA. And after filing the LCA, after getting an approval, you have to file the I-129 petition, the I-129DC, and the I-129H petition. You can certainly file it online. There are advantages of doing that because the fee is slightly lower, and you can get a receipt immediately. Um, and I can't go through all the forms and how to fill out each form, but uh, along with all the forms, you have to submit a petitioner letter, the approved LCA, and documentation to show that the beneficiary is educationally qualified. Education experience might be required sometimes, and an evaluation might be required of the education and experience, depending on the type of petition and the type of credentials that the beneficiary has. In addition to that, of course, you have to submit proof of employment, bona fide offer of employment, like I said. You have to submit an unexpired passport copy. If the person is in the US, you have to submit the I-94 copy to show status. If the person is on an F1, you might have to submit, proof that they're continuing to maintain status. Now, with the new H1B regulation, they're saying that proof of maintenance of status should be submitted for each petition, and should be submitted, in the first go itself. So they want that information to show that the person has continued to be in status for the entire duration of their whatever their status is. So if it's an F1, then they have to show that they've maintained their status, whether if they're on CPT, you have to show why CPT was required and worked for a CPT employer, and that the employer is related to the course that they're taking. You have to show that they actually attended school. They took only minimum allowed amount of online courses. Everything else was in person. That they maintained their GPA as required. They paid their fee as was required. They're on valid CVIS status, and their CVIS has not been cancelled for some reason. So a letter from school showing that they're maintaining valid F1 status. So that's all related to status documentation. If you're on a H4, there might be different documentation that you have to show for status, etc., etc. So status documentation, LCA documentation, educational and experience documentation were required. Credential evaluation were required. And of course, a petitioner letter. So all this is required information. Proof of work, could be a PO and work order, were required, or tax returns and contracts to show volume of business were required. So this is, in a nutshell, how you should file your H1B petition.
Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for taking that up for Gotham. And wow, Gotham, quite a handful. But I really hope that you check out our channel, Immigration Talk Show, because we keep, covering all these relevant topics that you have asked, actually. So check out our page. And in fact, even with Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, we have spoken a lot about H1B and the various steps and also potential RFEs fees as well. So yeah, check us out, and I hope that you get all your answers. But even if not, you can keep commenting wherever you're watching us, and you know, tell us your questions. Maybe we can always forward them to our attorney. So yes, Prashanti. Now let's go on, and I have another question. If you could tell us, with USCIS now allowing online filing for H1B cap petitions, what are the advantages and also potential drawbacks compared to paper filing?
Um, we've switched completely to online filing. The only instances when we don't file online is when we have a H4, and the client wants the H4 and H1 to be processed together. Though there's no big advantage of doing that nowadays because they are not approved. Previously, we were filing together because would be clubbed together, and now that might not be the case. But we are still trying to file our H4s with the H1s, and then in those instances, we don't file online, we file a paper filing. So as you can see that there are many advantages, that's why we're doing it, of filing online. The first one is that, of course, most importantly, it's easier to do because you don't have to FedEx scan, send it. Maybe you send it to the wrong office. You won't know whether you sent it to the wrong office or not. Maybe you sent the wrong check. You won't know whether you sent the wrong check or not, wrong amount, until a month later, 2 months later, when USCIS realizes, oh, this is wrong, and they mail the case back, and the person might have fallen out of status or wasted, 2 months in the process, and can no longer join the employer in case of a transfer. In an online process, you get to know immediately. If the fee doesn't go through because you've put in the wrong fee, you'll know immediately. They'll reject it. If the check or payment doesn't go through, you'll know immediately. They'll reject it, and you can immediately refile. So that's a big advantage. The second advantage is you get a receipt immediately. It doesn't get lost in the mail. You do get receipts by mail, but you don't need to wait for that because you're getting an online receipt. So you don't have to worry about the post office, losing your receipt. So that's another advantage. You avoid the disadvantage of the receipt getting lost, and you get it immediately. So both ways, that's an advantage. And just logistically, it's easier to file online. You don't have to copy and scan 300 pages and pay FedEx, $100 to, that's how much it'll cost if it's a big package. And then wait for FedEx to deliver for next day delivery because they don't deliver same day, and run the risk of FedEx not delivering because sometimes that happens as well. If there's a storm, if there's rain, if whatever, the package can get lost. All that is avoided. The logistics of having the case sent out by mail is avoided by online because now it instantly they receive the case, and there's no multi filing of copies, sending out duplicate copies for consular cases, etc., etc. All that is not required anymore when you file online. So as you can see, there's multiple advantages of filing your petition online. Ease of it, the speed of it, all these are huge advantages.
Absolutely, Prashanti, very well put. And I really hope that
Well,
everybody is.
Nipasa,
Yeah,
the
yes,
disadvantages of it is that sometimes the system is slow. Sometimes the
yes,
system doesn't work. It freezes. So you might have to wait for the next day or contact the help desk. But as long as it works, and most of the time it works, then there's no disadvantage.
yes, that is a real good thing. And otherwise, I mean, is imagine it's not working on the last day because of all the hassle and the rush. Well,
Yeah.
you've had it, so better not wait for the last
Yes.
day ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you're doing online filing, don't wait for the last day. I would just send out if I can by FedEx, then okay, have a backup of FedEx or whatever courier service if the system freezes, and definitely don't wait for the last day because then even if you send out by FedEx, it won't, they won't receive it on time.
Mhm. All right. So, well, Prashanti, we do have some questions from our YouTube. And hi, Pooja. Thank you for joining us. We'll quickly take up Pooja's first. So, what are the implications of Simeo, if I'm pronouncing it right, decision on H1B cap cases, particularly with regards to the requirement of amendment petitions in cases of work location changes?
So Simeo no longer has to be looked at anymore because you have to look at the new H1B regulation. And it is within the H1B regulation. There's no need to look at case law anymore because it's in the regulation itself that if there is a change in work location, you have to file an amendment before the change takes place, not after. Um, Unless it's a change that is temporary, that is just 30 days, and then the person is coming back to their original work location. There's some exceptions where amendments don't have to be filed in case of work location change. But if you're not subject to those exceptions, then you have to file as per the new H1B regulations.
There you go. Thank you, Pooja, for commenting and for participating. If you have more questions, keep commenting. And I mean, this goes to all folks out there who are watching us. If you have any questions and want to connect on call, you can call us on this number 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. So yeah, stay with us. And Prashanti, we do have some questions we receive in our YouTube, so we would like to address them as well. Let's take up this one from Mungel. Hi, my employer is willing to sponsor H1B but doesn't want to pay for fee. An attorney is for an attorney. And is there any way we can share payment, or is there any legal way we can do it?
Um, I mean, the USCIS fee for sure has to be paid by the employer, especially the 750, 1500 part, ACWIA, the fee. The attorney fee, it's kind of a little bit of a gray area, whether that has to be paid by the employer or not. Registration fee definitely has to be paid by the employer. Um, so it's a gray area, but if USCIS finds out that the employer made you pay the fee, they will doubt the uh, uh, veracity of the job order. They'll wonder if there is actually a job that exists, the veracity of the job, whether the job actually exists, whether the employment offer actually exists, because the employer is not even willing to pay the fee. So my recommendation is that the because of these reasons, the employer pays the attorney fee as well. But it's possible that for the beneficiary to pay the premium processing fee, but all the other fees, my suggestion and my recommendation is that the employer pays it, including the attorney fee. But of course, there are some fees that the employer has to pay. But even with reference to the fees that are gray areas, such as the attorney fee, I suggest the employer pays.
Okay. Thank you, Prashanthi, for taking that up for Mungel. And now this next one is from Gopal. Client letter and agreement is mandatory. Otherwise, small employers' H1B visa will never be stamped. Visa officer is following the same steps since 3 years. Is that true? I mean, I don't know what is the question, but Prashanthi, what would you like to say on this?
Client attorney and agreement is mandatory. Otherwise, email or other small employers. H1B visa will never be stamped. Visa officers following same. Um, I disagree with reference to what visa officers. Yes, sporadically they have been asking for in-client letter even when they were not supposed
Mhm.
to in the past, but not in all cases. And AILA did approach the Department of State, telling them that they should not be asking for the client letter. But in some instances, yes, they were still asking over the past few years for at least for a PO.
Mhm.
May not They may not necessarily require a letter from the end client, but at least some proof that there was a valid job offer. But in some other instances, they didn't ask for it. But now, given the new H1B regulations, as of this year, January, they will be asking for client letters and POs and vendor letters and contracts, MSAs,
Mm.
etc. So you have to please keep those ready and don't go to the consulate if you don't have a valid job offer for your beneficiary, for your employee.
Okay. Thank you, Prashanthi, and thank you, Gopal, for participating as well. Now let's go on to this next one. This is from Avlo. Do you know how to file H1B I-129?
Yes, I do know.
Maybe he's asking for the steps, but quickly, if you can briefly just tell what are the steps, Prashanthi, it'll be great.
I think we have already discussed, Nipasa, the steps. Let's
Yes.
just go on to the next question.
Okay, let's go on then.
I don't want to repeat myself because, for the interests of the audience that is carefully listening to everything,
Absolutely.
I don't want to bore them with saying the same thing
But
over
thank
and
you.
over
Yes,
again. So
Aval, you can.
let's look for
Yeah.
something new. Look for
Yes,
something new.
I will do watch this whole episode again. I'm sure you'll find your answer. Now, this is from Sandeep. Hello, I have H4 and didn't travel to USA yet. I was picked in 2025 H1 cap. Do I need to be in USA for status change from H4 to H1B? What will be my options?
Yes, if you want to file a change of status from H4 to H1, you have to be in the US on a H4 and then file it as a change of status application. But if you are outside the country, then you cannot file a change of status application because you do not need to. You have to file a H1B for consular processing, in which case the H1 will be approved without a 994. And then you have to go to the consulate, get a visa, and come into the US. And you'll be given an I-94 at the port of entry. That's the process.
Okay.
But if you don't want to go to the consulate, and if you already have a H4 visa, then it's possible for you to come in on a H4 visa and then apply for a change of status to a H1 within the 90-day period. Then you can remain on a H1, and then next time when you have to travel, you'll have to go for a H4 visa.
Okay. There you go, Sandeep. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Prashanthi, for taking that up. Now let's go on to our next. This is from Puli. Hi, ma'am. Thanks for sharing this information to us. Okay, even my H1B lottery status still showing in submitted status only. What does this mean? Status means H1B got rejected in the lottery. Please advise me on this.
Well, it's too soon to tell. They have not yet released all the lottery results. They will stagger out the results. They don't release them on one day. So wait until Tuesday. Until they have to release all the results by April 1st, because April 1st, before April 1st, in fact, because April 1st is the day that you can start filing your H1s. So wait until 31st. Is there 31st for this month? I think
There
there
is.
is. Wait until the 31st and then see what happens. But again, I said make sure that you actually go into your registration and check to see if there is a registration notice, even if the case shows submission and not selected. There were some cases where they did not change the status to selected, but there was a selection notice once they went into their case. So just be careful about that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prashanti and Puli, also for your question. Now let's go on to our next. This is from Victor. US Labor Department law H1B workers, like American workers, must be paid at least the prevailing wage for their occupation in the area of employment, or the actual wage paid to similarly qualified employees, whichever is higher. The H1B program is designed to ensure that H1B workers are paid at least the same as similarly situated US workers, or the prevailing wage, whichever is higher. Okay, now most companies do not abide by labor law. They use H1B workers as an indentured servants and low wages slaves. This is either not fair to H1B workers or American workers. What would you like to say to that, Prashanti?
Um, maybe it is possible that in some instances that is true. Every law, whenever there's a law, it is exploited. You can't avoid that, but that doesn't mean that the law is necessarily bad. And you have to see to what extent it is exploited, right? There'll always be bad apples. But to say that the whole H1B program should be scrapped because of the bad apples is also incorrect. Coming to what employers usually pay H1B workers, yes, they're required to pay either the prevailing wage or the actual wage, whichever is higher. And I must tell you, in most instances, the prevailing wage is actually higher than what other US citizens get paid in the same industry or the same company. So it's actually reverse prejudice that is taking place in many instances. Um, yeah, so there is that scenario as well where the H1B workers actually have to be paid more than U.S. citizens, because that the prevailing wage is higher. The prevailing wages are very high, uh, even for entry level positions in some cities, right? So that's another scenario that I wanted to highlight. Um, but in most instances, if they are not paying the prevailing wage, then when the uh, person is trying to file an extension or file a change of status or file a transfer, they will be deemed to be out of status. So it's not sustainable to not follow the law, because if you don't, then anything that you're trying to do, your H1 will expire in 3 years. An amendment might be required because you're moving locations. You might have to go for a visa. So there are many checks and balances in place. There are FDNS audits, there are Department of Labor audits. So there are many checks and balances in place to ensure that employers are towing the line. Because if they don't, they can't continue to be in business. So that's all that I have to say with reference to that. Yes, I agree that there are instances when this happens, but there are checks and balances in place as well to ensure that it doesn't happen, and that if it happens, that they are punished.
Yes. Thank you, Prashanti, for that. And thank you, Victor. Let's go on to our next. Okay, we're done with all our comments from YouTube as well. Thank you, Prashanti, for taking each one of them very, very patiently, and also to all you folks out there for joining us today with your questions. Well, there were two more case studies which I had. If we still have time, Prashanti, would you like to address them?
Sure.
This is about Rahul, an IT professional from India who has been working in the US on OPT after completing his master's degree from US University. So, his employer submitted his H1B registration and he was selected in the lottery. However, when filing the petition, his employer realized that the LCA certification was still pending and the petition was rejected for missing required documentation. And now his OPT is expiring in 60 days and he is unaware of his options. So, what are Rahul's immediate options now that his H1B petition was rejected due to a missing LCA? And if his employer can his employer refile the petition within the same year if the LCA is now ready? And there are more questions, but let's take these first.
Yeah, as we discussed earlier, that they can definitely refile within the 90 days grace period if the H1B was rejected, as long as it's within the 90 days, the deadline to file the H1B cap subject petition. But you also have to keep in mind to see if the person is actually in status. In order to file a change of status, the beneficiary has to be in status. So that's a good thing also to keep in mind, which we didn't touch upon earlier. But you have to make sure that the person uh, qualifies for the change of status, right? So they can only qualify if they're within their 60 days grace period. If that's expired, then they might be out of status, so they have to leave the country immediately before they become out of status. Or if they already have, then they have to leave the country immediately and then file for a H1 consular processing and then
Okay.
take their chances at the consulate. I understand that they might have remained in the country based on the cap gap rule, because their status freezes as soon as they file the H1B petition. As long as as of the date of filing the H1B petition, they were in status. That status freezes. That's the cap
Mhm.
gap rule. But now that it got denied, all that is out the window, and they may not be in status anymore.
Yeah.
So it's important to look into that aspect as well. And if they're out of status, then let them leave immediately and file for consular processing.
Okay. And just in case, if Rahul's employer delays refiling, the OPT expires. So will Rahul have any legal options to remain in the US?
After expiry of status, there's nothing much you can do other than filing a H1B nunc pro tunc.
Okay.
OPT, even after OPT expires, you do have a certain grace period. So you have to see whether that grace period is applicable to you or not. And you can file
Okay.
within the grace period. But if nothing is applicable, if you're out of status, you cannot file after if you're out of status, you have to file consular processing or you have to file a H1B petition, nunc pro tunc.
Okay. And, what will you suggest, the best practices that employers should follow to avoid such filing errors in future H1B petitions?
I mean, be more careful, use an attorney. I mean, sometimes attorneys also make mistakes, but be more careful with um, how you file your H1B petition. Use people that are knowledgeable. I mean, everybody would know that you can't file a H1B petition. People who know about H1s know that you can't file it with a pending LCA or a rejected LCA.
Yeah.
So in this particular scenario, it's a question of not knowing what the law is.
Mhm. Right. Right. Thank you so much, Prashanti, for taking that up. And I think with that, I've also finished most of my questions. But we do have Papa Ki Pari who's joined us. So Pratibha here. Hi, Pratibha. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. She's saying, I got 221G in Jan 2025 only. My employer replied to RFE as per the consulate in February, but status till now refused and no update from 5th March. Case updated, date changed four times till now.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So she has 221G, which is basically administrative processing, At the consulate, she went for a visa interview. They didn't give her a visa. Instead, they put her into administrative processing, which is kind of a request for further evidence that the consulate does. These cases can take a while to get resolved because they contact the employer, they might contact the client, they to find out if there is an actual job available, and then USC, the Department of State is backlogged, so sometimes it takes 6 months, and sometimes it can take longer for them to resolve this case. And if they're going to deny the case, then it takes them a while to notify USCIS to uh, you know uh, to send a notice of intent to revoke the case. That's the
Mhm.
only time that that the administrative processing is over and that the case has been finally denied by the consulate. So it takes time for USCIS then to send you this notice of intent to revoke. That's the only time. That's when you'll know that the Department of State has made this recommendation to USCIS. So that can all take a while. Um, your case is only recent, so you need to be patient.
Yes. All the best, Pratibha, and thank you so much for joining us. So, Prashanti, we have taken up all of our questions so patiently. Thank you so much for taking each one of them. And maybe before we go, if you have any end notes that you want to share with all our audience right now who are watching us, it would be great.
I just wanted to again reiterate that the lotteries results are coming out. Started this morning. They're trickling out. We just got a few. Please make sure again that for those who didn't hear me in the beginning of the program, that you look out for emails from USCIS, from my USCIS, which say that there is a new action taken on your case. Even if you don't get the emails, please check for the next 3 days the status on your case. Don't just go by submitted or selected. Go and click into your case actually to see if there's a selection notice, because as I said last year, there was issues where this case status didn't change, but the registration was actually selected.
Mhm. That's interesting. Thank you so much for, highlighting that as well, Prashanti. And thank you so much for joining us today. It was a real pleasure having you. It's always nice, that you share your insights and expertise with us in every webinar that you join us. So thank you once again.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Have a great day, Prashanti. And folks out there, thank you so much, each one of you, for joining us today here on Immigration Talk Show. And do contact Attorney Prashanti Reddy in case you want to have a one on one consultation or you want to discuss your case with her. You can call her on the number 212-354-1010. And you can also email Prashanti at reddyesq.com or go visit www.reddyesq.com to get to know more about Attorney Prashanti Reddy and the law offices of Prashanti Reddy. Well, you can also contact me, and I do have a WhatsApp number and a phone number where you can also message me your questions if you have any, where I can you, direct them to the attorneys. So my number is 408 335 6444. Once again, 408 335 6444. And my email address is nipa@staffingneed.com. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. Follow us at Immigration Talk Show. That's our handle on YouTube. You can also check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on Instagram as well. Follow us, stay in touch with us, and watch out this space because there's a lot more coming on Immigration Talk Show. Bye for now.